Hey, what's going on, man? Here is a comment that I'm going to show you guys up here in this corner. This gentleman's asking about a CRV that he took to the dealer with concern on rattle on startup. And a little context, I had a viral video that I was trying to do some editing at the end of the video, and I had like 500 and some thousand views in a matter of like 2 months because there's a notorious problem with the rattle on startup with the Honda motors, just like we have the rattle on startup issues with Ford motors. And the fix was either a VCT solenoid, good filter and oil, or actually going in and replacing the phasers and stuff like that on the Honda. I think my parents, it was like a 2.4 liter they had. Both of them had 09s. One was a black one was a white one, and they were the basic models. And the cars were great vehicles. I mean, they absolutely loved them. Never had a single bit of problem out of these vehicles. I think I ended up replacing the battery in my father's car after 6 years old. My mother was like 7 years. The batteries lasted a long time. They were the OEM batteries. And right at about 90,000 miles, they started rattling on startup. And I had put out a video. I talked to the general manager at one of the Honda stores here in Illinois, and he said, well, there's two ways to fix it. We've found it's kind of like mixed. So I don't want to steal your money. I understand you're a heavy equipment mechanic. At the time, I was a heavy equipment mechanic. Now I work for Ford. He said, so you're more than capable of doing it. I'll save you the money so your mother doesn't have to, down her car or whatever. We find a lot of success with the OEM VCT solenoid and a lot of success with the Napa top brand VCT solenoid for these vehicles. So I went to Napa. I paid $65 for the solenoid. And then it sits right on the passenger side of the motor, but just kind of tucked up underneath the top of the motor, right behind the power steering pump, right above, or right behind like the tensioner pulley, or right above it, if I remember correctly. It was like one little 8mm bolt. It was like an 8mm bolt anyway. And I kind of wiggled the solenoid out. I removed the belt, I removed the tensioner, and I removed the two bolts for the power steering pump, and I moved them out of the way, but I didn't have to disconnect the power steering. Now, I was told if you have small enough hands, you can get in there. You don't have to remove almost any of that stuff. You can just reach down there with a small 1/4-inch drive ratchet and socket, pull that bolt out of there, pull the solenoid out of there, make sure you wipe the hole out and stuff real good, and then just pop the new solenoid in, put a bolt in, change the oil and filter and stuff, get some clean stuff in there, and maybe even flush the motor out before you start this process to just make sure there's no sludge in there. And that new solenoid alone, and then cleaning the little screen, there's like a little screen on the front of the motor, just around the front behind the power steering pump. It's like a little square block. I took the two bolts out of there, cleaned that little pre-screen out, put it back, put the new solenoid in, changed the oil and filter. Vehicle never rattled again. It didn't need phaser and all that other stuff. So that service manager that was kind of giving me the heads up on it was right. It's either the phaser itself or it's the solenoid that controls the oil flow to the phaser. So I ended up fixing both of their cars, one at 90,000 and I think the other one just at 100,000. Now that rattle on startup can also be misconstrued with, we've had a lot of Hondas come in here with their belt tensioners being faulty. And they'll come in here for like an oil change or something like that, and I'll hear it as the lube tech goes to start it up. It'll brrr, and then they'll go to back out of the stall, and as they're driving, it'll brrr, as they're backing out, and then they go forward, and it's like brrr. Wait a second. And I'm watching the side of the motor, and I can see the belt tensioner bouncing off of its stop. And they wear out really quick on these Hondas for some reason, from what I found, and they'll sit there and they'll bounce off the wear stop, indicating that the belt is already worn too far at that point, because people think they get these Hondas and Toyotas, they don't have to maintenance them, so they just let them run forever and they don't check belt quality, they don't check any of the other type of maintenance stuff, because they believe the general consensus, you just don't have to check anything. It's a Honda, it's a Toyota, you don't have to do anything, just change the oil, you're fine. And it's not true. I've had several Honda CRVs and Accords come in here the last couple years where belts are just completely wore out on them. The tensioners are just bouncing off the stop, and I don't feel comfortable reusing the old tensioner, so I'll tell the customer up front, get me a belt and give me a tensioner, charge like an hour and I'll have this taken care of for you. Really, it may not even take an hour, but that's standard shop charge for actual physical labor outside of just a basic inspection. And it takes care of the rattle a lot of times. So it's either the belt tensioner, the belt being loose causing the tensioner to bounce with that VCT solenoid. Worst case scenario, you're going to have somebody pull front cover and put phasers and stuff on it, probably put a new belt and everything on it while they're there. But with the dealer telling you that that's a common problem with Hondas and it doesn't cause any long-term drivability issues, Ford says the same thing on the 3.5 liter EcoBoost Rattle on startup. It doesn't cause any long-term issues. Yes, we want to fix it for the customer so they don't have to hear it and deal with any issues. And we've never seen it cause any long-term issues. So your question was, does this sound wrong to you? No, it doesn't sound wrong that they're telling you that, but it could be as simple as a $65 part replaced and then you're back on the road. Now the V6s, I don't have any experience with them, only the 4-cylinders. So I can't speak on behalf of the V6s, so maybe one of the Honda techs want to chime in the comment section on that and give us your experience. But that's my experience with the Honda Rattle on startup issues. I hope that at least helps or gives somebody a glimmer of hope that it's not going to be an expensive repair when you have to deal with this. Sometimes it may be, sometimes it won't. But that's my experience with the Honda Rattle on startup. Y'all be blessed.